Love the chat before we got started today. We were on one of our Monday night group meetings on Zoom, the Texas Lawyers Wellness page, and I said, you know, it's exhausting because a lot of times we're practicing on the defense with our hands in front of our face, where everything we do, we scrutinize so we don't get a grievance or we don't get a malpractice case. And Shayna said, oh, that sounds like a good CLE. You're on for November or for January. And I was like, well, okay. And I thought it was a really good opportunity for me to bring in one of the best women I know. Her name's Laura Easton. I've known her since my first meeting, if that's okay for me to share, Laura. She knows everything about me, but what's most important about today is not that she tell my deepest, darkest secrets, but that she and I have been working together for over a year now. I'm working with her as an executive coach for my business and for my personal life. And we talk a lot about words. And what we're going to talk about today is how we can communicate with our clients to avoid having to practice on the defense. And this is Laura's bio. She's a coach. She's helps a lot of women, but she works with a lot of men as well in balancing our life, our work life, our business life. And, you know, it's hard enough to be a lawyer, but then when you're a business person as well, there comes a lot of different strategies and a lot of different things. Last year was a very difficult year for me with my business, and Laura walked me through that. She has her master's in social work, and she's amazing. So I'm really excited that I get to share her with you today. And so I want to get started on what we're talking about. The Texas Lawyers Creed is way too long for me to sit through and read, but I do pick out certain parts of it. And it's our commitment as attorneys to the public as a whole. We have to do more than just avoid grievances. We have to do more than just avoid malpractice or avoid committing a crime. A lot of what you hear about attorney and counselor at law, I do, and as a family lawyer, work a lot with counseling with my clients. Some of them want me to micromanage their parenting, which I just absolutely refuse to do unless there's something critical that they're doing that I have to talk to them about. But we always start, when we talk about ethics, when we talk about discipline, we always start with the Texas Lawyers Creed. And I think it's important for each of us to take a look at this periodically. And I probably don't do it as much as I could or should. And so I encourage you to take a look through it. It's kind of like a defensive driving course. You know, you get on there and you're like, oh, I got to do this so I don't have to pay the ticket. And then you start learning new stuff. So I think it's this is a good opportunity. It's January. Let's start it fresh. We've got the CLE. Let's start reading it. And so, and we know that we have obligations. We have to communicate well. We have to communicate with opposing clients, with our or opposing counsel. We have to communicate with our clients, with the courts. And sometimes that's very difficult. And I like to think of myself as courteous, professional, and kind. And every now and then I'm not. Every now and then I will be snarky. I'm a really good snarky, sarcastic person. And I try not to let that bleed into my work, but sometimes it does. And what has happened over the last couple of decades is it's become more and more uncomfortable for me to engage in snarky sarcasm and not go back and apologize and clean it up. And I do that when I have to. Unfortunately, it's the time between each apology is getting longer and longer. Sometimes we don't like our clients. We don't get to pick them, they pick us. And sometimes we have to deal with clients who are difficult, challenging, high maintenance. The smartest person in the room, I think that's probably the most difficult one I have, is when they know more than me. And they like to tell me that. And so one of the things that as an attorney, what I have to concentrate on is managing my clients' expectations, managing how I communicate with them and to them. We probably spoil our clients a little more than others, but we do believe that we have 40 cases on the shelf and they have one. And this one keeps them awake at night. They don't know where they're going to live. They don't know where their children will live. They don't know how much money they're going to have when they step off the stand. And so we have to be aware of that, but not to the point that it affects how we handle their case. And just recently, thank goodness, I mean, kind of coincidentally, this recent bar journal talked about the main causes of grievances. And we're going to go through these 3 today and hope that we can communicate to you a way that helps you avoid these issues. The first one is the most common you see in the bar journals under discipline. And I will admit, I get my bar journal, the first thing I turn to are disciplinary conduct that the violations. This is the one, failure to communicate. We have to keep our clients reasonably informed. We have to promptly comply with a reasonable request for information. And we have to explain the matter to the extent reasonably necessary to permit the client to make informed decisions. This term reasonable, there's no definition for it in the code, but it's just what we do is if there's something that happens in their case, we notify them, whether it's presenting them with the document that the opposing counsel file where you just know, you just gird yourself, you're going to send this to your client, you know that the phone's going to blow up. This is a bunch of lies, this is this is that. We do provide our clients with information that we receive. We email them our file stamp copies, we email them what opposing counsel sends, links to discovery. Letting our clients go through the discovery keeps them occupied for a while, but it also helps us to communicate better with them about the facts of the case. The second main cause of a grievance is neglect, neglecting a legal matter. This is where the grievance and the malpractice world sometimes cross, because they don't always cross. I have served on the grievance panel. I served on the DCAP committee with the state bar, and I've represented attorneys in grievances. So I've kind of got a bird's eye view of what goes on. But if you fail to file response, if you respond to discovery to the extent that it's actionable with the court, if you don't timely file a petition in a case and the statute runs, or if you file, for instance, a malpractice claim and you don't have your doctor's you don't have your doctor's report timely filed, that is neglecting a legal matter. But it can also be failing to pursue the correct remedy. And it would be great if there was some bright line definition of what that remedy is. And for many of us who are solos, we don't have many sounding boards. And this is, we're going to talk about getting a mentor when you're not sure. Then the other reason is when people, and I don't grasp it, but failure to safeguard client property. The times I get money that I put in my escrow account is from the sale of residence. I mean, obviously my retainers, right? But on top of that, I get, like, if a couple sells their house and they want someplace to put the proceeds until the divorce is final, we'll use my trust account. You have to maintain trust account management. I had a big conversation with my bookkeeper yesterday, and she's like, well, if you do this and do this, then you'll know how much to transfer. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to be trusted with that. You know, I don't want to do math, especially if there's letters involved in the math. I don't want to do it. And I'm paying you, I trust you, because this is a critical part of your practice. But in some cases, attorneys will look at that trust account and go, oh, it's just $5,000. I'll put it back next week after this client pays me. And then the client goes to them and they don't get the money. But it doesn't matter if they do put it back the next week, it's still a violation. And so we're gonna touch on that and how to maybe prevent you from getting the sticky fingers, right? We also have to look at the reasons for the grievances, whether it's impairment, inexperiences, lack of access to resources, support staff issues, use of law office practice management software, and other docket control protocols. You miss a hearing. So we're going to kind of go through those 3 top reasons today. And one of the reasons I use this scenario is my first Christmas holiday season in practice. no business was coming in. And I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? I don't remember the scenario, because if I did, I would be happy to share it with you. But I started thinking of a way to generate income. And I realized I was treading a line between good and bad. And I was like, listen, Diane, God has provided for you all these years. He's going to continue to provide for you. You don't need to even consider those things. And so it exited my mind, and then I got retained on a big case within a day later. But so this is a scenario we're going to talk about. And one of the reasons I use Rob Thomas, I'm going to share this with you, is Laura and I have different tastes in men. We said we'd never fight over a guy. And then we went to a Rob Thomas concert and we found the common denominator. But so during the holidays, everything comes due. Business slows, tuition is due for the kiddos, taxes are due, got to make a deposit into your retirement account. And Mr. and Mrs. Rob Thomas appear in your office. They've been sued by their HOA for unpaid dues, and the foreclosure has begun. You've never handled any real estate matters or HOA matters, but they're willing to let you go to the mat on this one and have the money to pay you. And Mr. and Mrs. Thomas want you. So you start looking at, oh my God, the dollar signs are attracted, the tuition bills will get paid, but you've never handled this case. You think about it, you think, well, maybe I could retain co-counsel, but damn, I need that money. And so you take the case. Now, talking about the rules, you cannot accept or continue employment when you know or should know that's beyond your competence. And if there's pride that comes into this, there's like, oh my God, I'm a lawyer, I should know this. And if you're taking a case that's beyond what you're comfortable with, reasonably comfortable with, like maybe you can learn it and you think you can really learn it, or you have a friend or a mentor, that's one thing. But what do you do when you're tempted by that sort of case? You accept the retainer, file the answer, call opposing counsel, who quickly realizes that you don't know what you're talking about because you're using terms and words that don't match the lawsuit. You start to realize, and you start researching and you realize, oh, heck, this is way, way out of my wheelhouse, but I've already accepted the retainer and maybe you've spent some of it. So what do you tell the client? This is where I'm going to defer to Laura, because she will tell you things that will help you in communicating with your clients and explaining to them without imputing yourself as far as being liable. So Laura, you can take it from here.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Let's see. You've put some of the answers down here. So what should you tell the client? Saying that, you should be honest about the type of law in which you practiced and what you're proficient in. And if you decide to call co-counsel and have that all signed up, and if they really want you, then they know they're going to pay more for you to add co-counsel, et cetera. So there are those practical, pragmatic ways to go. I would, from a consulting and coaching standpoint, I would ask you to consider, and Diane just gave you a great example and she kind of flew past it. She was going to do something and then she didn't, something bad versus good. She didn't do it. And then the next day she got this great case. So just going into faith and, just holding until the right case comes along. So there is something to, when you're considering taking a case, you're about to take it, but it's like trying to fit the square peg and round hole and all that. Stop, pause. If you take the case and you spend a lot of time trying to learn it, like the law just said, last slide, or you are working just very complex and complicated, and it's just taking all of that part of you that's basically not your genius zone. So if I could challenge you, if your genius zone is to maneuver, manipulate, and kind of put things together and work the deal and all that, or is your genius zone to take care of your client, practice law, and get a great outcome for your clients? So You can decide how you want to spend your genius, your time, your energy. So from a consulting standpoint, I would encourage people to, or business people, entrepreneurs, lawyers, to go for the cases you want and do the work, even if you're going through a drought. Go for the cases that you want. Now, how can you go through the drought? I'm not sure whether Diane wants me to talk about this now or later, but that has a lot to do with going way upstream and prioritizing yourself and setting yourself up for success, and success in every way. How you make choices, how clear you are, whether you're relaxed enough to make good decisions, whether you're prioritizing your self-care at all, or are you leaving it all at the office, working like a mad fiend, being driven by beliefs, listening to those voices in your head, not like you're crazy, but like you're being driven. Whose voices are those? What's your self-talk? Is it your father? Is it your mother? Is it a coach? Is it somebody from your past? Because you may be driving yourself into the ground. And if you're driving yourself into the ground, you gotta whoa-ha, like step way back. So if you want to come in and just and sort of intervene or interrupt this decision and don't take on the HOA case, that's one thing. But how did you get to the point where you were considering taking it? And so I really work with people to back you way up to why. How have you gotten to the situation you're in? And if you want to change it, what will it take to change it? So Diane, again, I can ask more about that.
That's perfect. And I think it leads into our next one, where you have this client. I get them frequently. And from the beginning, they call daily for updates from me and want to give me updates of everything in their life, every detail of the case, every nuance, including, and I love this one because I use it a lot, what they heard from the uncle of the neighbor of the cousin of the other party. And we all know none of that matters, but we have to be considerate of what our clients are going through. So in the beginning, we take the calls. We're like, oh my God, I can't do this anymore. And you just want to beat your head on your desk. You're not getting any valuable information, nothing. And so it doesn't take long to figure out that your client doesn't have a good support system, and they need a good support system. This is disturbing your practice. It's disturbing the flow, and it's interfering with your ability to get the work done for them. And so we have choices. Every day we have choices. I always talk about this way. We have this much energy every day, and we're the only ones that get to choose where that energy goes. Now, sometimes like the car breaks down, or the house floods, or the dog gets sick, that we don't get a choice about. But for the most part, our daily lives, we get the choice about where we spend our energy. So we can either take the phone calls. We can be frustrated. And if you don't think your voice is telling your client you're frustrated, you're probably wrong. I can't hide those feelings. Just like, I will, and, we have practices in my office to help that. I've also, when clients say, how much is this going to cost me? I let them know in advance. This could be, you have control. So you can explain to the client how unproductive and wasteful this is. And then we go into, what does it mean to neglect a legal matter versus keeping our clients informed? There's the balance. And we have to think about that we have to communicate, and we have to pay attention to their case. And sometimes you've got that client that incessantly calls you. And then one day they say, it's really important that I talk to her. It's very important. And I roll my eyes. I'm like, no, not today. I don't have it. I don't have the bandwidth. It's gone. And then it does become a big deal. So how do we know? How do we know how to handle those things? And again, these are the two rules that we focus on a lot, because the reason I'm focusing on them is the majority, the largest percentage of grievances are because of this. Now, I have my own issues with the current grievance process, and who gets grieved and who doesn't, and how that all gets done. But if this is going on in your office, if you're violating 101 or 103, you really need to reevaluate your processes to avoid this. And so when we're going into this, we look at, we know our clients are needy, right? They're needy and they don't have a support system. Now we can pass the calls on to the staff, but I have found that my staff doesn't know how to get off the phone with these people. And I can walk out in the hallway every 5 minutes for a half hour, they're still on the phone. And you can review the previous communications, see what value they have. And is it necessary? Start evaluating if it's necessary to speak with them. So what do we tell our clients? I try to use the, hey, this is going to cost you. But there are people that don't care. They don't care that it's going to cost them 0.25 or 0.20 or 0.60 or whatever for a phone call. And so what do we tell our clients? How do we tactfully, professionally, courteously consider their feelings and their emotions about the case and let them know that they're being unreasonable? They're the ones being unreasonable without saying that to them. So I'm going to let Laura chime in on this one as well.
Okay, just to bounce off of your being unreasonable. Obviously, I don't think you would tell your client that. Or let me say this: you want to be in a position and situation and a mood, attitude, just in a place and space with yourself that's not what comes out of your mouth. So again, there's that starting way upstream and doing everything it takes to bring your very best self to your practice every day and to your clients and the phone calls, and whether the calls are from clients, opposing counsel, or the courts, whatever it is that you have in front of you, you want, I believe, that you want to bring your very best self. Now, no one's perfect. Sometimes we cut people off in traffic. Sometimes we're curt. Sometimes we have to call and apologize. That's human nature. But what I'm talking about is really almost always being in a situation where you are graceful and you have dignity for the other person and compassion. However, I think what Diane is talking about is the first thing that comes up for me is boundaries. And how do you set boundaries? Now, this situation is describing needy clients. You're getting good people at their worst. So you are describing people who ram right through boundaries. So you're like, boundaries right, the only boundary that's going to work for this guy is to hang up on him. Well, I'm not going to do that because that's not being reasonable with your client. So I talked with Diane about this not long ago, actually, about how valuable it is to not only set yourself up to be in the right mood and position every day, but how do you do that? How do you maintain that in the overwhelming chaos of juggling a lot of clients and needs and incoming and outgoing? So you're in the middle of a very busy intersection. And I work with people to help them set up processes and systems. Sometimes that has to do with staffing. So sometimes it could be hire and train the right person in your office to be your client relationship person who is gifted at boundaries and dealing with the communication for needy people, people who may have mental illness diagnoses. There are reasons why I'm not trying to say all clients have mental illness diagnoses by any stretch, but people are, sometimes people look like they have some condition because they're in such a pressure cooker, devastated, betrayal, gaslighting, fear of money, terrified of the shame they feel about the situation. I mean, your clients show up with the deepest reactive triggers, feelings. All of it is just on, they're just like, a raw dog. So again, to the staffing, somebody who is really gifted at working with those people could be a clinician. And I'm not kidding, a counselor, a clinician, or somebody on staff or on retainer who can help you manage those clients. One option. It may not be the one you really wanted to hear today. You'd love just to be able to say, what do I say that'll shut them up? Another idea is the processes and systems is, I just think about me being a client. I went to Diane for help with something. It wasn't an emotional thing, but what I want is like something tangible. I want a binder, not in the computer, not on email, something tangible that you can give me as a client. And it says, here is how we operate. Here's how we do business. Here's how we communicate with our clients. Here's our fee structure. There are some examples within our binder that's created just for you, client, and it has examples of. Now, there are times, client, where you'll want to call money's no object, and you don't care if I'm going to bill you for a 10-minute or a 40-minute call. But there are boundaries around when I'm working on your case, I'm working on your case. And when I'm working on others' cases, that's what I'm doing. So I hear that you need to speak with me, and we're going to need to set some limits around it. And they may not hear you. I don't think, in fact, that they will hear you on the first visit, because they're coming in full of distress. Hiring a lawyer is, and it's scary for most people, I would say. But giving them that binder anyway that you can refer back to, or a notebook, something tangible that you can refer back to. Your office staff could even refer back to that. Now, here's something that I think everybody could put in place. When you get an email from somebody or a voicemail somehow, or you get a message, there's an automated out of office notifier, sort of, so to speak, but it's an automated response that says, thank you for your message. We have received it. We are working on your response, and we will be back with you and then tell them, is it 48 hours? Is it 72 hours? Is it today or the next business day, whatever your kind of construct is for your business. But I like to know that you got my question, and then I know you're working on my answer. And then you've told me by when I'm going to hear from you. And that is really clear communication that's automated. I'm very into technology that automates things in communication. So if I call you and I never hear anything, I'm going to keep calling you. It's like calling the IRS. It's like, just, somebody help me. Tell me you even acknowledge me. I think that's another thing that your clients might be feeling, is I just need to be seen, heard, and understood, because in this situation, I lost, if it's family law for Diane, I've lost my support because he left me or she did this. So being acknowledged and kind of your message has been received, I think is good. I was thinking about bedside manner. That may be a terrible way to say it, but we've all had those doctors or surgeons who have no bedside manner, so to speak, but they do a darn good job for us, and we're so grateful. They have people around them that theoretically do have that bedside manner. And so again, supporting you and your genius zone and your flow, and having a team, whatever that team looks like, could be one person, it could be a family member, it could be a staff or somebody outsourced, but having some support around you to take care of the stuff that keeps you from practicing law and moving the ball forward. So Diane, I could again keep going, but let me pause and see where you are.
I love it. I love all of that. And what's interesting is I sent an email to council last night saying, hey, did you all deliver the checks to my office in Brownsville? And I did get one of those replies. We did receive your email. We're going to respond in the next 48 hours. And it was great. It was the first time I've ever seen that. So that's really interesting.
Good.
One of the things I learned early in my practice, when I was practicing early on, I second guessed everything I did. And I soon learned that avoiding a conversation with a client because I don't know what to say or what our next step is, avoiding that will eventually result in a 2-hour conversation that I have with them. But if I just call them and spend 10 minutes and say, this is where I am and I still need to do some research or whatever the issue is, can prevent numerous messages being left, and it can prevent a 2-hour conversation 2 weeks from now. Now that we're through COVID, I mean, for the most part, one-on-one conversations with my client in the office can really make a huge difference. And it can put them at ease. They start feeling more comfortable. They can trust me. They can trust my staff and the way my office looks. And to people that know me, it's no surprise that when someone walks in my office, it is immaculate. I have my binders. I have my desk is clear. I don't have other clients' information on my desk. I turn things over. I put binders in a different place. So that my client, when they walk in there to have that one-on-one meeting with me, they know that I am there to talk to them. And that is very important to gain trust. And if we can get our clients to trust us, it's not as easy as it sounds. But if they can trust us, we can get their case resolved much more quickly, because they're going to trust our judgment when it comes to settlement or mediation or whatever. I kind of put this together, and this is not black and white, y'all. A lot of people confuse grievances and malpractice. One does not necessarily equate to the other. Grievance is based on the rules of professional conduct, and be familiar with them. I had a binder for the longest time, hard copy binder with all the rules, and then the rules of disciplinary procedure. But you need to just familiarize yourself, because there's comments under each of these rules that will help guide you in your practice and how to avoid making these mistakes. So, I kind of did some distinguishing here. It's not clear cut. There's no bright line. You fail to return calls to a client. That's a grievance. Can be a malpractice if there's something going on with the client that makes you miss a deadline and then therefore hurts their case. Fail to timely supplement discovery, experts and witnesses are struck. Malpractice, but it can be a grievance for neglecting the case. You didn't produce documents that are essential in proving damages. Again, that crosses both. I put malpractice there, but it can be a grievance, both. Question came on one of our Facebook pages, not just recently, if there was a conflict. I represented them and this and that. And I said, if you have to ask if there's a conflict, it's a conflict. Just assume it's a conflict and pass them on to people you trust. And you're going to be rewarded at the end of the day. So we go into the next two are both in that ballpark. If you have to ask, it's a conflict. Failing to provide an accounting of the client's money, that can be both, especially if you took the money. And failing to provide an accounting because you spent the money, that's both. So we're talking about when you've had too much, the warning signs. Now, I'm not going to necessarily see these in me, but one of the things that I speak about around the state is taking care of each other. I'm very familiar with so many of the attorneys in the family bar in Harris County that we pay attention to each other. Like, if you have somebody that is generally spot on, totally there, always in line, blah, 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 they start missing appointments, hearings, deadlines. You can't reach them on the phone. If you're not sleeping, if you cannot sleep, if you're overindulging in alcohol, medication, food, or anything that has control of you, that could be exercise, where you're just out working out like crazy all the time, or you're sitting at the hookah bar 10 hours a day, or whatever it is you're doing that you can't wait to do again. Could be games, video games, playing on your iPad. If you notice one of your colleagues are gaining weight, they're losing weight. Quick story, went to law school with a man that was considerably overweight. He was about my age. We were both older. We're walking to our cars after an exam, and he has to stop 3 times to catch his breath. We have lunch over the Christmas holiday, which is like a week or so later. And I teared up and I said, Robert, I'm worried about your weight. I'm worried about your health. And he said, Diane, I know. I just got to get through law school. And he was at the top of our class. He got on as a summer associate. And that summer they had a retreat in Missouri. One morning, Robert got up and fell to the ground and died of a heart attack. And I was so grateful to myself to have approached him. Didn't work, but I don't have to spend my life saying, oh my gosh, I wish I had. And so when you see a colleague that is gaining weight, losing weight, used to be a sharp dresser and now their clothes are hanging or they're dirty, they've got stains, not paying attention. It's okay to pull them aside and say, hey, what's going on? You can trust me. Nothing goes past here. This has nothing to do with our case, but I'm worried about you. And maybe they respond and maybe they don't. The last two are kind of my things right now. People that are saying, hey, it's 11:30 at night and I am still here getting ready for trial and I'm working like a ninja and I am the bomb. That is not healthy. There are times we do have to work late, but to say that that's a sense of pride that you're working late and busting your ass over and over to prove something, that's not healthy behavior. And it results in violations like we talked about before. And so I'm trying to think of where, wait a minute, I'm going to go back. I don't know how to go back. Last view. Okay. We were talking about taking your client's money. So we're talking about, and I thought there was a slide in here, Laura, and I don't see it. But my dad owned a body shop when I was in high school, and he was a horrible businessman. He could fix any car you ever brought in, doesn't matter how bad, he could fix the car. But his business was failing. There was an insurance check that needed to be cashed, and my mom forged the customer's signature. My mother's hair would fall out before she would do something like that. I mean, she just didn't do stuff like that, but she was desperate. There are times when we may feel that desperation and we look at our trust account and we go, okay, I'm just going to take 10,000 this week to pay the taxes so they leave me alone. I'd rather have to put it back later than deal with the IRS. And you do that. You can't put it back. First of all, it's a violation the minute you withdraw it. But most likely you're spending money you don't have. And in my life and in my struggles financially, I have been in those situations where I'll pay it off next week. And I've never taken money out of the trust fund, trust me. But this was before I was a lawyer when I struggled paycheck to paycheck. And I had 2 kids in college at the same time and nobody was helping me and la, la, la. You get to where you're looking at those things like, maybe I can do it. And I assure you that if you can follow some of the things that are on the board, you can talk through these things so you don't violate. That is, to me, taking the client's money is probably one of the worst violations because it has ramifications with your license, with criminal charges, and with your finances, your family. It just runs the whole gamut. You're going to get some forgiveness and grace that 1 or 2 times with the grievance committee if you neglect or if you fail to communicate. But when you talk about the money part of it, that's going to run the gamut of your family. And so I'm going to let Laura kind of go through some of these with you because I use and abuse her, believe me. She's answered the phone to my hysterics in the past. And I look back on them and I'm kind of going, oh, that was not, but I pay her to listen to me too. And so it's money well spent and it's time well spent. And so I'm gonna pass the baton to her now so she can kind of tell you and talk to you about changes that you can make in your life so you don't have to practice on the defense anymore. You don't have to worry about the malpractice claim. And this isn't something that tomorrow morning you're going to wake up and all these things are going to be fixed. They're not. But we're just going to give you some tools that will help you and have helped me avoid these sorts of situations.
As far as being tempted to take your client's money and all of the things that could happen ramifications wise and legally and all that, I want to look at you and say, it will destroy you from the inside out. So I come at this not from a legal perspective, although I have integrity, but really more from a compassion standpoint and more from a how did you get here, and let's not why, because I could tell you why. You studied, you went to school, you were making, colleagues, you were starting your business, you're working like a fiend trying to either make partner or start your own firm, et cetera. And then you throw family and relationships, and then throw children and kids, and then throw life, just your life and all the things that happen. Like you have a fender bender, and it just takes a day to deal with that stuff. So life happens. So it's easy to get into the overwhelm and stress and frankly, lead to burnout. So I work with people to say, let's pause and stop. And I promise you that getting into a life-work balance, and notice I'm not saying work-life. There is no such thing as work-life balance, in my opinion. But to get some life balance or life-work balance means prioritize yourself. Now, the first thing that comes up for me, I'm living proof that it's possible to turn out like I'm talking about. I ran myself into the ground, worked, I don't even know how many hours. I felt like I was on partner track at a law firm. I was working like crazy and had zero self-care. If I had had the time, I wouldn't have even thought to take care of myself. I put everybody first, everybody's needs first. I was so convinced that I was doing the noble thing by working, being very successful in business. And so what if the other stuff went by the wayside? I did what Diane talked about. I had lots of weight gain and lots of those habits, those addictive habits. And I'm in recovery for 34 plus years now, thank God. But even in recovery from alcohol and drugs and other things, I still could reach for other numbing and avoiding behaviors. Whatever, all the things Diane talked about, and then some. So if when I say prioritize yourself and your self-care, and if your first thought is, right, there is no time to do any of that, I hear you, and I have lots of compassion for that. And I would say the other thing that would come up for some of you would be, it'll cost me my career. I'm not doing that. Or I'll lose all the progress and status and success I've got, and I'm not doing that. Or, and I know for some people this, and especially in your industry, to lose the respect of your colleagues because you didn't stay till midnight, or because you woke up and instead of doing the breakfast meeting, you went to the gym and worked out. Or instead of working right through lunch at your desk and throwing, high carb crap back for food, you took a walk, or you went and did something with a friend. You had some kind of connection. I will tell you that I hear every excuse in the book. No way can I do that self-care. I'll lose what I've got. And then where am I? Then I can't afford my kids' private schools. And then I can't afford to do all the other things. I think you've got to stop and prioritize yourself. Now, why would you not prioritize yourself? It, to me, goes back to whatever the limiting beliefs are that say, and I've had some that I've had a lot that I've resolved. If I don't do it, nobody will. If I don't do it myself, nobody will even, it'll be not perfect. Everything I do has to be perfect, or I'm not going to do it. I am responsible for everyone else. If I don't take care of Susie, Sally, and Sam, family, parents, whoever it is, that codependent caretaking, people pleasing, if I don't do that job, nobody will. Maybe you were raised to be well, you're the oldest, you've got to do it. Or if you're the best at it, please do it. Whatever the limiting beliefs are, there are so many, I can't even tell you all of them today. What is driving you to do what you're doing? And the people who have that dug in the most are the ones who are sitting here going, yeah, when is this going to be over? Like, I don't have any of that. I don't have any of that. And you, like Diane said, you just want to do this. I would say that there's something that's driving us to how we take care of ourselves. When I was growing up, you're a loser if you don't make good grades. You're a loser if you fail. You're a loser if you, and then I watched what they did to the people in my family who didn't perform, succeed, produce, and look cute and be popular. Those people were treated like complete whatever stuck to your shoe. I said, I will never be treated like a loser. Therefore, I got into at some point a routine of I'm not going to try, because if I can't get it done perfectly and get it all done and do it all at the same time, I'll just talk about it, go another direction, so that I'm never a failure. I never fail. In fact, I had a blog called the real F-bomb is failure to me. So I work with a lot of those limiting beliefs. And when Diane first called me, she said, I just want to stay on the beam. And I totally got that. And the reason I can say it without asking her permission is that it's on my website. It's on everything I have. So she just wants to stay on the beam. And I totally get that. There's a way to stay on the beam. And then there's a way to look underneath why we're doing what we're doing, what's driving us. So I know Diane's turned on her microphone, and I can wrap up.
Oh, we've got a few more minutes, Laura, if you have some other.
Okay. I would say when we avoid, and this was part of the Rob Thomas deal before, or when Diane said there are clients you just don't want to talk to, avoiding and not facing something today is such a setup for stress, the monkey on your back. And it'll take you straight to burnout, or you'll just start making the wrong decisions. And when I say wrong, I can say that to attorneys, decisions that actually impact and get you in trouble, or get you a reputation that is not going to bring in more business. So take your way of looking at that. But when you get into that and you avoid a client, you don't respond, you put it off, whatever is going on with you that you're bringing to work that is keeping you from doing something, you can call it procrastination. That's fine with me. Procrastination is perfectionism, by the way, at its worst. You know, if I can't do it perfect, I'm not going to do it. But avoiding somebody, it is so insidious and eats you from the inside out. And I will challenge you to start to tune in and pay attention. If you avoid things, you will get the way you will show up in the rest of your life will be impacted. You will treat others around you differently. You'll treat yourself differently. The monkey on your back is eating at you, whether you really know and are willing to admit it. It is driving you. So who doesn't feel better when they catch up, when they just finally do it, just make the call, just submit the paperwork, just take the lumps, you know, figure out a financial way to solve the problem without going and taking or borrowing money from the trust. I myself have been in this situation where I got my bills and I paid them from 4 different accounts and zeroed all the cash out, but I made it. I even took $120 in cash that I had to the bank to deposit it in my account so I wouldn't overdraw a check I had written. There are ways to solve problems. So I just want to say self-care is the fundamental way to life-work balance. And I would say balance is the fundamental way for your success. You can prioritize self-care, prioritize yourself, and create life-work balance. You'll be clearer, you'll better decision make, you'll have more time for yourself, your family, your children, more time for fun, recreation, laughter, more time to sleep, more time to do nothing, more time to travel, all the things you want to do. And you will not sacrifice your success or your career. You will actually grow that exponentially. So I really, truly believe, I'll leave you with this. Being in life work balance and taking care of yourself as a priority will improve your success, health, and your wealth. And I love doing this work, and I promise you it works. I really appreciate all of you listening, and I'm happy to answer questions whenever.
Laura, thank you for joining me. I think you brought a lot to this discussion from your education and your training and your experience. And as I said, I speak around the state on wellness issues, everything from take opposing counsel to lunch to taking care of yourself and watching out for each other. And we're all here for each other. If you logged into this webinar and you see people, I shut down this PowerPoint so I could see who all was here. I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. The course number is in the chat, and I hope that you can take something away. Sometimes these things, you listen to it and then you process it later. So if you need any information, you know where to find me. I live on Facebook. So, and I can direct you. We have a lot of resources. TLW has a lot of resources. And I'm just going to give a quick shout out to Shayna for all the work she does for us and for the lawyers around the state. Thanks, y'all. I appreciate being here. That's it. Lee, back to you.
Thank you. Is that it? We're done? No, you want to take questions or anything, or are you good?
Oh, if anybody has any questions, absolutely unmute and shout away.
Any questions, anybody?
Maybe if you have questions that you're not comfortable putting out here at the seminar, please direct message me on Facebook or send an email to me at diane@styveslaw.com. And we're happy to respond to questions. We're happy to give you counsel, send you to resources, whatever those resources need to be. So everybody, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you all. And
Thank you,
Diane.
guys.
Thank you, Laura. Great job. Excellent job. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.